Hello and welcome back to my tutorial series for Oxygen Not Included. Apologies that this one may seem a little staggered. It's the second time I've tried to record the audio because first time it didn't work. I normally record as I play. This time we're going afterwards. So I'm going to just be going over what I actually did. So you can see at the moment we're doing more in the caustic biome, and we're currently exploring into the swamp biome as well to collect the slime, and having a quick look around to the next caustic biome we're going to go into for the extra chlorine and primarily the materials we need to keep all of our soap dispensers and so on going. So down there we're making room for the transformer that'll be needed to keep all of the power needed over here, like the automation and the oxygen pump, or the gas pump rather, going. Looking down there we can see the power system is still okay. The coal is keeping everything going quite happily. A lot of this one is just waiting for things to be done because we've hit that stage of the game where there's a lot of things going on at once, and until things finish you can't really do much more with them. Mushroom farm is growing quite happily there. We're just waiting for more dusk spores before we can plant more mushrooms. We have an area there where I'm going to make into my Dreco ranch. You see we've already planted some tiles for the plants they'll need to feed on. And as you see, things are largely at this point just ticking along. Checking our water reclamation system, and everything is still okay there. We're building up a supply of clean water in that reservoir, but the other two are still very empty, so that system is nowhere near capacity yet. Just waiting for that large difficulty block to be carved into something by one of the other dupes. Now, at the Dreco Ranch, we do need to do something with the gases, which looks like, yeah, starting to prepare that room now. So we need to make sure we have an environment that the plants will grow in. That's mealwood at the bottom, which has to be oxygen, polluted oxygen or carbon dioxide. That's fine at the moment. At the top, though, we're going to need to make sure it's hydrogen. That's where the Drecos spend a lot of their time, hanging off the ceiling, and they need the hydrogen atmosphere to make it so that their coat is actually worth shearing, which is what we're primarily keeping them for, is for shearing, not the meat. Though when we have excess of them, they'll make a useful source of meat as well. Just planting the mealwood and using the copy settings feature to do it quickly, so that can start growing ready for the recos. Looking at our rooms, we can see that's not actually yet a ranch because it doesn't have the buildings it needs yet. And that's the shearing station. But we're also going to need somewhere to put a grooming station to make it actually into a ranch that will work and tame the Drecos. Now, I would prefer an oxygen atmosphere in the bottom layer here, so the dupes can more easily work there around the carbon dioxide we currently have, but that's not a huge problem. We can sort it out later if it becomes an issue. The mealwood will grow quite happily in carbon dioxide. And now, as you can see, put the grooming station in, and that will become a ranch. Or stable, rather, is the term that the game uses. You see, our grooming station does still need power. That'll come soon. And we're setting that to just get Drekos and Dreklets, which is Dreko young. We're sorting out the power lines now. Now, the other thing that building now needs is something to pump the hydrogen into the top level. Which is what I'm going to start doing now. While also sorting out the ventilation systems for down here. Well, first, as I mentioned earlier, the transformer needed to get that gas pump working. And there's automation, so we can easily turn that pump on and off when we need to. Starting to run a little short on copper, so let's make some more, because automation and automation wires really uses up that very quickly. Once we've delved deeper into the swamp biome and have some space, we'll be looking at a better system for refining our ores into actual metal using a smelter, but that's for a later day. And here's the gas system with filters in order to make sure the right gases end up in the right reservoirs. This is the point where I actually make a mistake, which I go back later to fix, because that particular biome only has chlorine in, doesn't have any hydrogen, so there's no need to filter out any hydrogen from it. But I say, that's something I didn't notice until later when I was playing through this, and you'll see me fix that before the video ends. And as before, all of this, of course, needs power. One of the warnings you'll see at the top left at the moment is that I have long commutes. That's one of the things the fire poles help with, but can't completely remove, is that it is simply just takes a long time for the dupes to get around the base at the moment. I didn't notice that problem when I was actually playing through, but having noticed it now, I'll look into ways to fix that next time. You see, we're now digging into the caustic biome, collecting that useful material, and then once we've gone in, we can set the pump going. Here I decided I didn't want any extra dupes, so we're just going for some plants ready for later. Oh, and we now have a mediocre sculpture up there, which is good to see. That sadly is, well, that's a good enough decor item to make that into a great hall, but there's still one more thing we need, which is a recreation building. So I'm going to make the mess hall a little bit bigger in order to make room for some recreation in there for the dupes as well. There's going to be one of those water coolers. There's a few options, but water cooler is the easiest for now. Later in the game I might well replace that with a jukebox, for example, which provides extra morale just by itself for being such a good recreation item. But for now, we'll keep it simple with something that just needs water rather than a lot of power. Because water we are not short of. There's another quite large pool of water just above where we currently are as well, which will need relocating at some point going forwards. But we're trying to make the barracks and the mess hall, or great hall as it soon will become, as nice as we can, because every extra piece of morale is an extra level of skill that the dupes can learn. Food is also a good way to improve that, but until our mushroom farm's going, we're not really in a place to make that into a permanent upgrade. So you see those mealwoods are growing quite happily and quite quickly, so it's time to get on with that. Because we don't want those going to waste. We do set them to never be harvested because we want to leave them for the Drecos to eat. We haven't done it yet, but if it turns out we get more Drecos than we can feed with those plants, we have a bit of space, of course, on the right of that room to put some more in. Chlorine is a massively useful gas which you don't want to let any go to waste if you can avoid it. It's so useful for lots and lots of things involving keeping things clean and safe from germs. Here's where we're going to put the hydrogen supply in for our Dreco ranch, or Dreco stable. But I'm also going to put in a shut-off there so that we can again turn the supply on and off as needed. We don't want to put so much hydrogen in there that our dupes can't breathe properly, or so much that it starts to push out the carbon dioxide whenever the door opens, because we need to make sure the downstairs of that room stays as an environment plants can grow in. And soon, in fact now, it should be time to go and start capturing some Drecos, which hopefully is what I've just noticed. So we've got lots of Dracos up here in the caustic biome, so we can grab those as a starting point. Once they're tame, they will lay eggs and be self-sustaining. Our first Draco now in the ranch. Me noticing I forgot to provide power for that gas shutoff, which it does need to work, like so many other things. And yeah, I'll notice soon that I didn't actually connect that wire to anything that could supply power. I think this is the point where I noticed that I wasn't actually getting any hydrogen from this biome, so there was no point having a separate hydrogen collection here. So if we use both of those gas reservoirs for chlorine instead, by simply fixing up some of that pipe work. Quick look round, see what we can see. That clean water there is our first clue on the bottom right that we saw a moment ago. There it is now on the right hand side. Our first clue that we're going to find a geyser. Which is very exciting because it becomes an infinite supply of clean, albeit very, very hot water. And eventually, when we get there, steam power. Once you can start capturing and taming such things, you are getting very much closer to self-sufficiency. There's always a handful guaranteed to turn up, and to be honest, I was surprised it took so long to find one. So Swamp Bio is being dug out quite happily. If I was on a harder difficulty setting where I cared more about the disease and the germs, I would probably restrict that door to only dupes that had germ resistance going through in order to make it so that there was less of a risk. But on this level, we don't need to worry about details like that too much. You can see there we've got our first harvest of reed fibre from the Dracos. We'll be using that later on for clothing, for exosuits, and for some decorations. Good stuff, and a very, very easy way to get it is from shearing it directly from the Dracos rather than the actual industry it might require otherwise. There we go. Finally noticed that wasn't powered up, so we get that fixed. Looking forward to that first harvest of mushrooms as well, because then we'll hopefully get more spores to expand that. And similarly, as we go through the swamp biome, we should get more and more fungal spores so we can grow our mushroom growing industry. Having a quick look round, everything's going fine. Digging further into the swamp biome. Using ladders because they're cheaper than actual tiles. And allow a bit more flexibility in terms of what the dupes actually do in terms of moving on them. Didn't take anything here because none of the people are particularly helpful, and shove voles are actually quite dangerous until you're ready to deal with that kind of thing. So I didn't really want their eggs. I could have used those for food, I suppose, in hindsight. But if I remember rightly, I took the decision to reject all of those. We still have skills to look at. And again, we can start to see for some of the dupes that the green, which is their total morale, and the red, which is the morale they need for the skills they've learned, are getting closer and closer. In some cases, depending on the skills we pick, could potentially exceed. We have to be careful that doesn't happen. Remembering the hearts indicate skills they're interested in, and so things that will actually give them more morale if you teach it. But when you get to the higher level ones, they'll still cost more morale than you get back from them. Because skills in the third column create much higher morale need than ones in the first or second column, for example, but they still only give one back, even if it's in a skill they're interested in. It's why it can be useful to pick dupes with lots of different interests rather than just one, because that one will give an amazingly high starting skill, but it will penalise you later on when you're trying to manage morale a bit better. More digging out, and here I start to be careful because I don't want that polluted water falling into the clean water. So I have to be very careful how we manage digging out this particular little area. And when you get over there is when the steam geyser itself will appear. It's just off screen at the moment. You can also see down right at the bottom our next type of biome, which we'll explore when we finish the swamps, which is where we find things like salt water. And I think we have just on the very bottom right our first ice biome too, which will be very useful when we come to start needing to cool things. So everything again is just ticking along at the moment. Collecting the bleach stone, one of the most useful substances in the game and often a rare one. So to grab every bit of that we can. Partly for the hand sanitizers and partly because it's needed for a lot of the medicines we can make. Ah yes, that's the dupe that it turns out has actually caught slime lung. As you see, that adjusts his breath, it reduces athletics, but it will go away reasonably quickly. It's not as deadly in recent updates as it used to be. Still, it's something you want to avoid if you can, hence all of the precautions we're taking to keep everything clean. We're going to build some more medical packs just to make sure we have some. So that's using balm lily flowers and phosphorite, both of which we're fairly limited on, but there's some phosphorite up here again in the caustic biome. So we'll grab some of that. Again, at some point when we have space and time, we're going to want to start growing our own balm lilies because we can't rely on a wild supply forever. Oh, we can see that geyser now just down there. So have a look there. You can notice the temperatures are very high in that area now. It's currently not pumping anything out, but that will change at some point. One of the points is we'll analyse that when we get someone to it, and we'll be able to predict when it will. There it goes. And once it does that, the temperatures get much higher. We're actually above boiling point there at 109, 110-ish degrees C. And analysing each of the options appeared there will let us predict that a bit better. So we do have to be careful, and in fact we're probably going to build a small airlock there with exosuits for it to be researched properly, just to protect our researcher from the heat. But that's for the future when we've cleared out the swamp biome a bit. And yes, just below there it would seem, have a frozen biome. Now putting on the temperature overlay, you can see clearly that it's very, very hot where it comes out of the geyser, and still reasonably warm as it gets closer, as it gets further away from the geyser. But all that water in there is hotter than we really want it to be for general use. Use it for research quite happily, but we don't want to be drinking or cooking with it. More skills. And this is all we had time for, so thank you and goodbye.